I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and this is News and Week in Review, and I'm back. Back from what feels like a million conventions. I think it was only five conventions in 5 weeks, but I feel like a convention a week on average is too many conventions, and finally, I have a break. A break where I can actually go ahead and catch up on all the things from the videos to Gamefound to who knows what I need to do, and playing games. I do play games. I've been playing games in the past 5 weeks, make no mistake. But I get to sit home and play more games, which hopefully will happen. We shall see. The point is I'm back. I'm back from all of the hectic travel. My next convention is actually going to be Dice Tower Retreat in early September. So if you see me there, yay. I'm probably not doing WSBG because I added Dice Tower Retreat to my list. And that means that I have to give up something because I'm trying to be responsible. Although I say that now, I may end up at WSBG. I do love WSBG. I'm trying to be mindful. We shall see. We shall see what happens. I do recommend WSBG, World Series of Board Gaming. If you haven't gone, or if you have gone, I recommend it. I think it's fantastic. I may end up going. I want to go, but I also think I shouldn't go. I will cross that bridge when it comes to it, and I will be at Essen. So if I don't go to WSBG, I think that means I have 3 conventions, because PAX Unplugged as well. So PAX Unplugged, so 3 conventions between now and the end of the year. That's like a convention every 5-6 weeks on average. That's totally reasonable compared to the last month and a half. But with that said, Gen Con was a lot of fun. You can check out my Gen Con live stream that I did, semi-Gen Con live stream on Wednesday. You can check out, on Thursday. You can check out my Gen Con Haul that I did on Friday. I will be covering a lot of the games I picked up at Gen Con. I've already played like 6 or 7 of the 50 or so I came back with. I'm trying to go through them as fast as possible because I like to get like the first 25 or so done so that I can like feel I'm halfway through. Like very often I try to get the first half of my Gen Con list done in the first month or two because then I feel like a month or two I'm halfway through and then the rest trickle out throughout the year. We'll figure that out. That's going to be my homework assignment over the next, end of year, I guess, from now to the end of the year. But the point is that I feel like I'm finally back a little bit on a rotation, a little bit on a schedule. Although, again, if you've seen some of the content on the channel, I also have a kitten now. I came home from Gen Con with a kitten, which means I'm also adapting to that schedule as well. I constantly say this. I enjoy my life, but I do sign up for a lot. But with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the news and week in review. Some of it's going to be a bit, let's try to put it this way. Let's try to behave as much as possible in the comments. Let's try to be respectful and mindful towards each other as much as possible. I understand that there's going to be some controversially, politically charged stuff in the comments. It's always an argument. Is it political? Is it not political? There's going to be things in the comments, in this video, and I beg you, please make my week as easy as possible and put your opinions out as much as you want, but try to at least put it out in a respectful way. With that said, let's dive into the news. This is the News and Week in Review, where we cover the news. We cover the no creative spotlight this week. I feel that the news stuff I want to cover is already going to take up more than I want. No creative spotlight. We'll be doing the news. We'll be doing the videos of the week, the games I covered this past week, and then the upcoming week, all of that, of course, the games on the table, links and timestamps to everything down below. Let's start off with the news. Let's start off with the easy stuff. CMON is losing 2 more people, basically 2 people, their chief financial officer as well as someone else. Stepped down. 2 people stepped down. They resigned from the company in order to, after careful consideration, in order to devote more time to his own business. This is an article on Board Game Wire. I think most of the articles we're covering today are on Board Game Wire. Links to everything down below. But this is obviously not great news. CMON did announce that they're coming out with a bunch of small box games. They announced that some of the pre-orders are going to be, the end is in sight. And they also said that they are not going to be doing crowdfunding until they've earned back the faith of their community. They are very aware of what's going on. This is one of those things where if CMON doesn't deliver stuff, that's bad. If they do deliver stuff, they are at least handling, if they do deliver everything, they are at least handling all of this well, in my opinion. And I know some of you might not think so, but this stuff has happened before with other companies. It will hopefully not, but might happen again with other companies. And I do think that, again, if they don't deliver, it's bad, period, full stop. If they do deliver, the adjustment towards trying to salvage things and make things work, even communication-wise, I'm reasonably happy with how they're acting. Again, even that is possibly going to get people like, how could you be happy with how they're acting? Because the boat is where the boat is. At this point, the question is, what can you do best? And it seems like they're doing things reasonably well, but again, I understand if you have a different opinion completely. This is the least charged thing we're going to be talking about today. That's the article on CMON. Basically, an update of what's going on currently. Again, the good news is they are not asking anyone to give money without getting things. They are not asking anyone to pay increased shipping fees. They aren't doing a lot of the things that some companies have done along the way. All of that counts for very little if they then don't deliver these games. But if they do deliver, then they're doing a lot of things right, and it's frustrating, it's hard. There are many games that I very anxiously want to get from their outstanding queue. Some I can live without. Like, as much as I want, like, DC United, I have a lot of Marvel United. But like God of War, I want God of War. There's some games that are in the upcoming CMON pipeline that I have been interested in, and I don't know if they're ever going to happen at this point, and I've demo. We'll see what happens. Anyways, moving on to there, we have, speaking of troubled companies, we have Elf Creek Games bringing in Genuius Games to restructure the business. Fulfilling overdue Kickstarters is their top priority. Genuius Games, they've done a lot of games. I think First in Flight was one of their bigger Kickstarter ones. They've done, I can't remember the name of it. What's that plant one with, not chlorophyll, something else. The one with plant genetics, but I can't remember the name of it. They've done a lot of games. They do educational stuff, very solid educational games, and they are coming in to restructure the overdue crowdfunding campaigns, or to restructure Elf Creek Games in general. Gencon has record numbers. I mean, they sold out again this year, as they did last year. Biggest ever attendance reaches almost 72,000. If they sold out last year and they sold out this year, how is this year bigger than last year? I am curious about that. Like, the center is not bigger. Like, the fire marshal let in an extra 2 people so that you could be more sold out than last year. I am genuinely curious about that. But they sold out again, and they're up on the exhibitors. They have more than 575 exhibitors, up from the 540 last year. I mean, but again, the fire marshal's got to have the fire marshal. Like, how is it more sold out? How does it have record attendance? Do we have anything about that? Do we have record attendance? I don't know. I'm curious. I am curious about that. They're doing well. Gencon's doing well. Very popular, very busy, very crowded. Moving on from there. Oh, bags are falling. I kept looking over there. There's like a noise, and I realized I had like 2 game bags stacked on top of each other, and they were slowly tilting until they hit the shelf. They were empty, so no damage caused. Over on BGG, we have a Sanctuary preview from Eric Martin, who got a chance to see this one at Gen Con. I did not get a chance to see it. I actually was invited to go see this, but the problem is there's a full like gameplay demo, and it's hard to make time for full games at Gen Con. It's hard. I do a lot of meetings, both for Board Game Co. and Gamefound, which means my hours are very packed as it is, so I try not to do full game demos, but it does make me want to. This is basically a shorter version of Ark Nova, called Sanctuary, designed by the same designer, Matthias Viger, I believe. Viger? I think it's Viger, but I could be mistaken with that. But nonetheless, this is Sanctuary. It is a smaller, more streamlined version of Ark Nova. It is not a light game. To be very clear, this is not a light game. It might be a drop lighter than Ark Nova, and it's half the playtime. Supposedly, we'll see. We'll see how good it is. And with that, let's go ahead and head into the topics of, not topics, the news pieces that I don't want to talk about. And I wasn't planning on talking about it. When this was just about CGE, I was actually planning on skipping this. I just didn't want to get into it. I talked about, if you want to see a bit more into this, you can go towards like the last half an hour of my live stream on Thursday. I go more into it there. I'm not going to go into all of that. It was a long conversation. I was not going to cover the CGE part because I have conflicted feelings about certain parts of it, and I didn't want to give the wrong impression about what my conflicted feelings were about, and I felt that it possibly could do damage if I covered it. It could do damage if I didn't cover. Either way, I didn't want to cover it. Then Devir happened as well, and to ignore both of them felt like Devir is a whole different issue. We'll come to both of these in a second. To ignore both of them felt like it's making a statement about ignoring the news. These are both news pieces. Ignoring one would have been bad enough. Ignoring both would be too much. So I'm going to talk about it. But part of the reason I don't want to talk about it, part of the reason I don't, is because these are such hard topics to cover properly, and I don't know if I will cover it properly. I think I'm afraid of doing. I'm afraid of causing harm just by talking about it, but I'm also afraid of causing harm by not talking about it. I am just trying to do the best I can. And depending on who you are watching this video, you may have opinions about, I'll tell you the news stuff in a second, but depending who you are watching this video, you might have opinions ranging from the woke mob canceling more companies, to companies are horrible, racist, transphobic, xenophobic, and all that, who are out to get everyone. There could be a wide variety of opinions here, and it's hard to cover these things with proper nuance. It really, really is. But let's start with the news coverage, and I'll try to give you distilled thoughts on this. And again, I beg all of you, please, whichever side you are on, and I shouldn't be sides, whatever your opinion is of this, no matter what your opinion is, I think there are ways to cover it that can be respectful towards everyone involved. We can have opinions, and we can have disagreements. And it doesn't have to resort to more than that. let's talk about the news. So, on CGE side, CGE Czech Games Edition put out, they announced that they're doing Codenames Back to Hogwarts, a new Harry Potter edition of Codenames. They announced it with like much fanfare, like, look at this exciting new thing that we're doing in the world of Codenames and the world of Harry Potter. This is not just like the IP, like Walmart version that was put out a while ago. This is like us really giving it a lot of attention and energy and trying to make the best game we can in the Harry Potter universe. That's what happened on the CGE side. That got a lot of pushback because J.K. Rowling is very controversial in the sense that she has opinions that are very anti-trans, but more than just the opinions, she has put her money, her time, and her energy towards being anti-trans. The level and capacity you can check, but you can look into this. And again, the opinions I'm trying. So I could do like 2 hours on this subject and not cover it properly. It is so much to get into. But I will say this. If you are someone who's of the opinion that J.K. Rowling does not have any issues at all, I do highly encourage you to look at one of her I want to say Instagram, maybe Twitter, I don't know, whatever it was, one of her posts where she's literally there with a glass of, like, I don't know, Chardonnay or whiskey or who knows, a cigar, sitting in the sun saying, I love it when a plan comes together, as she celebrates the reduction of trans rights. Okay, so there's having opinions and there's donating money and literally gloating publicly when those rights are taken away. Regardless of your opinions on things in general, I think that should be a bridge too far. That should be a bridge too far to post something like that when people are in pain. Regardless of any other opinions, I would hope that we could agree on that. I would hope. And if we can agree on that, then there's definitely room for understanding where people are coming from on this issue. Oh, and I don't know if I said it clearly, but J.K. Rowling has these views, the world of Harry Potter. She has publicly stated that she will funnel money she gets from the Harry Potter IP into these causes, and that makes it not just an issue of separating the art from the artist, but it does make it an issue of actively contributing to, again, there's so much I want to say, I'm trying to make this as short as possible, actively contributing funds towards the harm of others. It's not a art versus artist, there's an active contribution going on here. To that end, when CGE announced this, there was a lot of pushback. A lot of reviewers announced boycotts of CGE products because of this situation. Okay, I'm starting with the news. I'll get into minor aspects of my opinion as well as the resolutions. There are sort of resolutions, although even the resolutions are not enough because it causes more issues. But nonetheless, that's the CGE side of things. On the Devir side of things, Devir put out a game, Ace of Spades, sold out at Gencon, and then kind of after Gencon, or maybe at Gencon, people started to notice that there were a lot of problematic art cards, the worst of which are these. And there are a bunch, there's like 6 or 7. All of them lend themselves to basic stereotypes that are minorly harmful at best and largely harmful at worst. Like they're definitely leaning into stereotypes on this. The worst of which are going to be the slaver and the fugitive, where you literally have the fugitive drooling, which is not necessarily the best look. Just to be clear, when I say not necessarily the best look, I mean it's actively 100% not the best look. That's what Devir did. That blew up as well. Both of these things blew up in terms of companies that are doing things that are and different aspects of it. In the case of CGE, it's like almost like specifically trying to engage in an IP because, hey, this will sell and make money, or maybe because you're passionate about it, but ignoring the people who are affected by it. And in the case of Ace of Spades, it's somehow this slipped by a whole bunch of people, and it's a very negative representation that is, again, very easy to argue. I think it's for sure harmful. We can argue the extent or cause of that harm by just letting in this kind of stereotype into the art of the game. And in both cases, these are big company slip-ups right before and right after Gen Con. Both companies have issued statements about this. Devir turned things around in 24 hours. CGE took a lot longer. I will say, let's start with the Devir part. Okay. The Devir part. So first of all, Devir basically issued a statement saying they're going to recall the games and they're going to offer free replacement cards to anyone who wants it. They apologized for the entire thing. They're going to look into how to take steps to avoid this happening again. They kind of took a full accountability right from the get-go. For some people, that's going to be them bending the knee. For some people, that's not enough because how could this have happened? There's a lot of people who are not going to be happy with the outcome. My own 2 cents is I think that they reacted quickly, swiftly, and in the best way they possibly could have at this point in the process. And I'm a big fan of if someone, like, when you want action from somebody, to a certain extent, the question is, okay, well, what do you actually want to happen? I think that what happened with Devir is possibly for people who are bothered by this, which I think is a reasonable thing to be bothered about. I recognize I'm talking to a lot of people. I think this is the best action Devir could have taken. For people who are bothered that Devir bent the knee to the woke mob, you kind of got to ask yourself a question of, like, at what point, like, if Devir decided to do this, okay, and Devir decided to do this for whatever reason, decided to not to make these cards, but to respond to this. And I think that when you're actively upset when companies take action to make disenfranchised people feel better about a process, something that happened, if you're upset about that happening, to a certain extent you have to kind of question your own motives in life. Like, the representation here is definitely questionable. To what extent Devir had to do things is certainly a question, but even just from a business sense at this point, it makes sense to do so. And from making people feel right when they're hurt, it makes sense to do so. I always find it fascinating because I almost always find myself in the middle on these things, for better or for worse. There are people on both sides who are never happy with me being in the middle, and to be clear, I'm not the victim here. But I do frequently say that I find myself in the middle. People on one side are upset that I'm not too much on their side. People on the other side are upset that I'm not too much on their side. And I don't know. I never know. I never know what the right thing to do is. I try to do what's best based on how I see the world, and I find myself questioning those things a lot. I find myself questioning things a lot. I'm just trying to do the best I can in all things, and I'm trying to do the best I can. It's not, and to be clear, because again, there's going to be so many people, there's going to be so many things, so many ways to look at this. There's going to be people who watch this and say, like, oh, well, you're just unwilling to say X because you're afraid of being canceled. No, I'm not. If I was afraid of being canceled, I wouldn't post this at all. I would deal with the flack of not covering it. It would go away in 2 seconds. I wouldn't cover it. I think the fact that it was two pushed me over. The fact that there was two different things in 1 week pushed me over to the fact that, not that I needed to cover it, I could have posted a weekly update and said, hey, I'm tired from Gencon, we'll be back on schedule next week. There's so many things I could have done if I was afraid of being canceled. That's not what it is. It never is what it is. I just find myself conflicted. I find that it's so hard to figure out what the exact right line is in any different thing. But personally speaking, if you want my own personal 2 cents, I believe that the art in the Devir situation is problematic. I believe that Devir taking steps to make things right is the right thing to do. I do understand. No, I'm just going to say that. I think it's the right thing to do. Yeah, that's where I am with the Devir situation. Going to the CGE situation, and this is where I talked about it more in my live stream, but the CGE situation, again, CGE released a statement at the end of this. So at the end of this whole thing, CGE took longer to release a statement. The big thing to realize, to give some credit to CGE, is they're working with a licensed IP. They probably have their hands tied, and at no point in any of their statements did they mention that licensed IP, which makes me believe that they have their hands tied as to what they can and can't do because they are working with a licensed IP. So, and there's a lot of people who are giving CGE flack for, like, you're not even naming the IP. True. I'm guessing they can't. I'm guessing they're not able to. However they should have gotten here or shouldn't have gotten there, big question, fine. But they're here now. I think that they probably have their hands tied to a capacity that they're not being given credit for. You can vilify them for the things they've done if you want to or not, but I do believe they probably have their hands tied in the way things are now. And that also means that it probably takes more time to put out statements. Devir is dealing with their own game, no other thing out there, nothing outside their own game. So I think it's easier for them to turn around things quicker, and in CGE I think it's harder to turn around things as quickly. So that's first of all as far as the delay. This is my own 2 cents. I have not spoken to them about this. I don't know. I'm just going by what seems to make sense to me. But they did release a statement eventually saying, hey, all profits from the Harry Potter game, as well as the licensing fee they paid to use this, they're going to donate that, all of that, to a variety of charities. They're going to be working with members of the community to figure out where it's going, but they're basically making sure, they're saying, hey, we hear you, and we're not going to make money on this. That's what we can do. Again, some people are saying, well, you should just cancel the entire thing. They might not be able to. Like, again, working with IPs is complicated. I'm not saying they can't. I'm saying they might not be able to. I don't know what the exact steps are, but I think what they're doing is at least a step. It's hard to say. It's hard to say exactly. I don't. There's too much behind the scenes on the CGE one. I will say that what I talked about in my week in review is I was definitely more conflicted about the CGE one than I was about the Devir one. The Devir situation, I feel that is very bad art. It is something that shouldn't be accepted nowadays. Like, I mean, if you think about, like, 2012, I think, was the 5 tribes, like, slaves debacle, and that was, they had slaves versus fakirs. The original 5 tribes had slaves. That was, like, a long time ago, and that, to me, was just historical representation of slaves. I'm not saying it's okay or not okay. I'm saying it was just, like, putting, I shouldn't say the word just, it had slaves in the game when the game didn't need to have slaves, but they weren't necessarily more than that. This is, like, straight up harmful stereotypes in the Ace of Spades. So it's many years later in a much worse depiction. I think this is kind of unique. This shouldn't have happened. With CGE, my main problem, my main conflict around it, and why I didn't want to cover it, is while I genuinely understand the people who don't want to see CGE working with a Harry Potter game, or anyone working with a Harry Potter game. I understand where they're coming from completely. At the same time, I did feel it was unfair to CGE that they got targeted for something that is done by a lot of others. Again, the way I put it in my live stream is the op puts out Harry Potter games all the time, and no one seems to care about that. The Board Game Geek has done sponsored content for Harry Potter games. I've done sponsored content for Harry Potter games. And that's just the Harry Potter game. Like, there's so many other problems as far as people working with anyone who makes money off of a problematic situation. And I did and do feel that CGE found themselves somehow, somewhy in the middle of this, when they were not the first to this party, and they will not be the last, and they were the ones targeted. And I do find that inconsistent. It doesn't mean there's not a point to be made, but I do find that inconsistent. That was my, and again, the problem is, but I didn't want to talk about it too much, because I don't want it to come across as a defense of what CGE is doing, so much as an inconsistent approach to what happened. Again, I feel like no matter what happens, I'm not going to make people happy. Again, there'll be a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are in the middle, like I tend to be. And those people are happy, and I should give credit to the fact that there are people on all sides. There's the left, the right, the middle, all kinds of spectrums here. And I should give credit to the fact that there probably are a lot of people who share my viewpoints on things. But I also constantly find myself, like, sometimes it's almost easier to swing to an extreme. Sometimes it's almost easier, like, hey, if I'm on an extreme, like, if you're on an extreme, you can usually make, like, a whole side happy. There's only one side upset with you. The middle people kind of understand, the people on the other side upset you, but I don't go with what makes things happy or makes my life easier. I tend to go with what I believe. I think situations are complicated. I think situations have nuance. I generally believe that not always, I generally believe that people are not out to cause harm. I think that sometimes harm can be caused whether you intend to or not. I think that generally when that happens, I'd like to see people given an opportunity to address things as opposed to calling for their cancellation. And I understand that sometimes people say, well, when you give people opportunities to address as opposed to harsher measures, there's no actual incentive to respond. I think there's a lot of reasonable viewpoints on a lot of sides, and not all sides, but I think there are a lot of viewpoints on a lot of sides that just have me conflicted. I could talk for hours about this. There's so much to get into. I already talked for more than I wanted to on this. I'll beg you once again in the comments, not even to me, just to each other. There's language to be used that can express a viewpoint, even if you disagree with it, regardless of what side you're on. And then there is language that can be used to demonize others, regardless of what side you're on. Please keep it respectful. Both to me, I do have feelings, but also to everyone else, more importantly to each other. I like the board game space. I like the board game space. I like the people in the board game space, all the people. And I would rather we found things to bond over, to connect over. And these kinds of things, like, it's news, and so I'm covering it because this is the news segment. But, like, I almost feel it would be better not to have. But is that better, or is that just burying my head in the sand? This is like the terror situation all over again, like, you know, different, very different, not equating the two, but the idea of, like, there's a desire to just leave something alone because you just don't have people as upset if you do so. Sometimes I just want it to be board games. But this channel never started with just board games. This channel started with topics about board games and conversations about board games, and only later did I start reviewing board games. So I can't retreat to reviewing board games just because it's something that's a little harder to talk about. That's your news segment for the week. And with that, on a lighter note, we will head into the Week in Review. Week in Review! Videos of this past week, we had several things. We had on Sunday, we had instead of this, play that. It's a little mini series I'm doing. I don't know how often I'll do it, but basically I'm picking popular games and giving you replacements that I think you should try out. There's Battleship, Catan, Apples to Apples, a few more. These are basically picking games that, like, hey, instead of this, play this better game. More meant targeting the wider space, not so much my average viewer. Although, hey, sometimes the average viewer wants to see these recommendations, even if you already are not. Like, most of you are not playing Battleship. I guarantee you, most of you watching are not playing Battleship, and most of you who watch that video are probably the kind of people who are not playing Battleship. But hopefully it reaches some others who are playing other games. Anyways, that was Sunday. On Monday, we had my favorite 20 upcoming campaigns. The 20 upcoming campaigns I am most excited for. I should note that there were some campaigns that I knew about, but I couldn't talk about yet. So, for example, Rurik, Dawn of Kiev from Fantasia Games is going to be upcoming. I am incredibly excited for that one. That absolutely would have made the cut, but I couldn't talk about it at the time when I did that video, so it wasn't in that video. Anything in the Gamefound Feast recently that I knew about, I could not talk about, even though there are some games I'm definitely excited in that Gamefound Feast. Speaking of which, on Wednesday I did a coverage of the Gamefound Feast, going over the games, 23 games in the Gamefound Feast, ranking them based on my own personal excitement level for those games, and yes, Rurik was number 1. Then on Friday was the Gencon Haul video, going over, myself and Meg, going over the Gencon Haul, the games we came back from Gen Con, why we got them, what we're interested about, and then giving you our 5 favorite picks at the end as well. Also a little mini spoiler callback to last year at the very, very end. But past that, those are the videos of the past week as far as the games we covered this past week. And when I say videos, I always just mean like the videos I did that weren't specific dedicated game coverage. As far as the dedicated game coverage, we had a bunch of things we covered. On Saturday, we had a sponsored gameplay for Time to Panic. I really enjoyed that one. I will have reviews for all the IB games, small box games coming soon, but I haven't played them enough times yet. I've played Pillars of Fate twice and the others only once, so I need to play them a bit more, at which point I will give you my reviews then. But then past that, we also had a review for Railroad Tiles from Horrible Guild. Horrible Games is their old name. I did get something wrong in the video. It doesn't change my overall opinion on the game. If anything, it possibly makes my opinion of the game slightly worse because you get a little less things done. But I did get one thing wrong. Check out the pinned comment for that. It's a minor detail. It still is a relevant detail worth calling out. As it is, I'll probably continue playing the way I have been playing because you get more things done. But a small detail. Not to minimize. If I ever didn't like something in a game, and the reason I didn't like it was because I was wrong, I think I would likely want to take down that video. Which I did one time. Like there was a game I reviewed, Fox in the Forest at one point. Like I had an opinion of that one, and I screwed up the rules, and I criticized the game because something I got wrong. I unlisted that video because I don't think that's fair to the game. But if I get something wrong and it doesn't affect my enjoyment, or in this case, the thing I got wrong arguably makes me like the game more, then I tend to leave that up. Basically, I just don't want to be mean to a game if I was in the wrong. That was on Saturday. Past that, we had later on Tuesday, we had a bunch of reviews go up. We had Shackleton Base. My first 5 out of 5 that I gave this year went to Shackleton Base. I have more coming, but the first one went to Shackleton Base. Then we had Warleague. Warleague as a sponsored gameplay and preview we did this week. This is basically kind of an RPG-esque dungeon crawler with co-op and competitive gameplay. I think that the gameplay itself is pretty decent. I think that there's a lot going on in this game. It's probably a little too involved for what I'm personally looking for, but the tactical aspect of powering up, going through the campaign progression and all that, overall, even just the decision space as far as how to spend your action economy in the game, it was pretty decent. Probably not a game for me. Past that, we had a review for Gatsby. I loved Gatsby. Gave it a 4.5. I reviewed it with my daughter. We had so much fun with it. I played it on BGA as well. I don't like it as much on BGA, just as a note to those of you who may have played on BGA. I think the BGA version is not as good, because I think knowing what your opponent's moving around the board is such a big deal, and I think it's so much harder to do on Board Game Arena. But as it is, Gatsby in person, I think is fantastic. And then lastly, we had a review for 10 Days in the National Parks, done with most of my kids, not all my kids, because we all love 10 Days in the National Parks. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. It's a better version of 10 Days in the USA, which is a reprint. Basically, the OP is putting out new versions of the 10-day series, and I am here for all of them. Those are the games we covered this past week, which brings us to today. Today, we're going to have a review for Oddland from Allplay going up today, as well as a review from Silos from Bitewing Games. Both those will be going up later today. And then next week, we have a bunch of things. We'll have a vlog series, probably. I started doing a little vlog series. They haven't actually gone up on the channel yet. That will hopefully be going up this week for the first time. There might be a 2-back or not 2-back for the first time in too many weeks. I'll see. No guarantees. I'll see if I can get one up. And then we'll also have some other videos. There'll be a Go On Board interview well, they have the active Tekken campaign. They have the Witcher Legacy coming up. So I'll be a Go On Board interview, as well as as well as several other like month in review, games leaving the collection. A whole bunch of videos will be going up this week, as they usually do. As far as the games on the table, these are all from my Gencon Haul, but these are all games, or most of them. Most of them are games that I specifically did not put as my 5 favorite. The Hobbit I did, but I'm putting it here anyway. That's why I did 5 instead of 4, because I'm including The Hobbit. But there are 4 other games that I hope to get to this week. I hope to be playing Soda Jerk as soon as possible, hopefully in the next few days. Peak Team. I'd love to play Peak Team, solo or cooperatively. I'll be diving into it shortly. We have the 4 Doors. I want to play this tonight. I haven't even broken the string or read the rules yet, but I want to play it tonight. And Beasts. Beasts over here as well, sort of like the Mind. I've already played a bunch of the games. Like I played a bunch of the games from Gen Con. I'm excited. I'm going through this as fast as possible. But the Beast over here from Panasaurus, I am intrigued by this one. It looks cool, and so I'll try it sooner rather than later. We'll see. But these are all games from the Gencon Haul that I hope to be playing. And then the Hobbit there and back again because I just want to play it already. In any case, that is basically the games. Until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. This has been your Week in Review. And as always and forever, I hope you have a good one.